Howdy guys, I'm Adrian Castro.
I'm Devin.
I'm Ethan.
And I'm Gabriel. You're watching Brainstormed.
And on this channel, we're going to be talking about a lot of things that most people do on their channels anyways. We were going to be talking about films, politics, whatever you guys like. Devin's got some more information.
Yeah, I'm Devin. I like fishing a lot, and we're all sophomores to go to a school in Northern Virginia. On to Ethan.
I'm Ethan, and I know a lot about our current economic climate and the future of money. Here's Gabe.
I'm Gabe. I'm overly opinionated and I'm really pretentious, so I'm just going to sort of dominate conversations with my opinions because I tend to devalue everyone else.
Alright, and that brings us to our first topic. Freedom of speech in schools. Is it being attacked and why? Gabriel, I want you to go first on this topic.
So I really think that nowadays in our schools, the teachers really try to push down what they believe in to their students as if that's a fact. And I think that a lot about our current, especially our political system right now, especially with Donald Trump and everything, the teachers all have really strong opinions, like I'm sure most of the students do. And I feel like they take these opinions and they try to impress them upon the students as if they were fact.
And some examples are that are like teachers will be like, "This isn't. I'm not supposed to tell you my opinion, but jam opinion down your throat, which nobody likes or agrees with or asks for."
That is true. I've noticed this with my experience. I have a few teachers that always are talking constantly of how they're not biased or anything, but are constantly talking about which side they support, how stupid the other person is in the political spectrum. Not naming names or anything.
Also, one of our teachers likes to mention the Holocaust a lot, but especially when we're talking about politics today.
Oh, that is true. Our teacher always compares Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler, which is completely idiotic.
I mean, they both drank water, so we have that comparison.
Well, and they both had two nipples, I think. Right? Or did Hitler? No, he had one testicle. There's a difference there. Anyways, again, with the whole topic of freedom of speech being attacked in schools, every time a student tries to portray their own, free, what they think...
Conversation shut down.
Exactly. They shut it down. They say that's not allowed in schools. But at the same time, they break those rules themselves and are always, trying to force, hey, so, if you don't believe in what I believe, I'm going to talk down to you, which happens to quite a few of our students in our classroom.
Someone got called poisonous yesterday.
Yes.
And if you don't have an opinion that the teacher shares, your opinion's immediately devalued. And if you agree with the teacher, you're immediately thought of as a better person.
It's just, if you don't agree, you're automatically dismissed.
That's true.
Not even considered just, you're wrong, I'm right.
Yeah.
And I don't really think that's just to our high school either. I think that that's a current problem that's on colleges, high schools,
I agree.
even in middle schools where kids tend to be opinionated, especially when you have an election like last year.
Yeah. And last year's election was very divisive and extremely, unconventional. But at the same time, teachers do not have the right to be forcing down what they believe in upon other students. They can share their beliefs. I agree. They can share. They can be free as well. But at the same time, you can't just force students to do what you believe in.
And they have to let students share.
Exactly. They have to have equal rights.
I think there's also some additional fear because they have so much power over your future. It's if you disagree with them, they could possibly alter your grades and let that influence how they treat you.
That is true.
Especially if you're counting on them for recommendations.
Yeah, that is very true. Well, that's our points for that subject. I think we can move on to the next subject, which will be what?
The yearbook. So we found this yearbook, and we're looking through it, and it was one of our parents' yearbook. It's a long time ago, and we found this quote, and I'm like, Dad, did you really say this about this person? It was Ronald Reagan or something, and it was completely misquoted.
It was. I ran through it. I looked at it. I was like, it doesn't make sense grammatically or even in the sense of what they're talking about. It said something like. What was it?
I like Reagan, him.
Yeah.
I like Reagan, him, because people can share their opinion.
It was completely, just grammatically incorrect.
Whoever wrote it was obviously had no clue what they were doing.
Yeah.
Whoever wrote it obviously had a clear bias towards Ronald Reagan, and they let that reflect the production of the yearbook, which resulted in a poor publication.
In our high school, at least, the yearbook just came out, and similar things have been happening.
That is true.
So it's going throughout the ages, people just writing wrong quotes down.
Especially in yearbooks, high school yearbooks in the American culture.
People just don't know what they're doing with yearbooks.
With opinions.
Also, off topic, but I just wanted to mention that our current yearbook, senior quotes have been removed. It's gone. Senior quotes are
I
not
guess
allowed.
people just get too butthurt these days.
I guess so. That's a damn shame.
I mean, allowing people to share something that they hold important. That's just
Did you just say
beyond-
freedom of speech?
No.
A neo-Nazi.
No, we don't mention that word here. Comment below what you think.
Like,
This is
comment,
gonna be so
subscribe.
fun to edit, you guys.
Oh no, we're
Thanks for watching. This has been Brainstormed.
not finished yet.
Good. I'm just gonna edit that part and add it to the end.
Remember, guys, 1 like equals 1 freedom of speech.
Exactly.
If you like this, we will give you.
Also, someone ring the bell. Servant.
Are we done? Like, are
Welcome back to Brainstorm, guys. I'm Adrian Castro.
I'm Devin again.
I'm Ethan.
And I'm Gabriel.
And welcome to Brainstorm.
So, today I really want to discuss healthcare because I feel like that's a topic that's been really discussed lately, especially on social media, and how healthcare has changed between Obama and Trump. Because people are quick to bash Obama for Obamacare from the right, and people from the left are quick to bash Trump for Trumpcare, Rodcare, whatever you want to call it. So, do you guys have any opinions on then and now? Which was better? How are they different?
First, I say without comparing them, back when before Obamacare, our healthcare bills. We own our own business, so we have to provide our own healthcare, and they were at a reasonable cost. They weren't too expensive, but they certainly weren't cheap. But then, as soon as Obamacare became a thing, they rose over 200%, and the quality of healthcare went way down. That's just a simple fact. It's not biased at all. It's a fact of what happened in our family business.
Your family business.
And all other middle-class family businesses, Adrian.
All right. Well, I feel like Obamacare had a purpose for. I'm not saying Obamacare is a good thing. I'm saying Obamacare is something that we should really reflect on and use for future references of bills. Because one, Obamacare did not allow companies or corporations to just jack up prices if they wanted to. It made sure that everyone, if they didn't have healthcare, could get healthcare if they wanted to. And that's important, but at the same time, as Devin stated, it did affect small businesses because they had to pay hefty prices. And they had to take away things that they would have done with their corporations and with their own business because of Obamacare's high prices. So that's one reason Obamacare is not a good thing. But at the same time, Obamacare helped a lot of people at the same time. It hurt private business, but at the same time, it helped a lot of people. So you got to find this balance. You don't want too much help where people are just becoming reliant on the government, then everyone becomes lazy, and then there's an economic crash. But at the same time, you don't want corporations to have too much power, or else everyone basically be slaves. So
are you comparing the AHCA or Trumpcare with Obamacare? Are you saying Obamacare was better?
no, I'm saying Obamacare is better, but flawed, severely flawed. And
Why is it better than Trumpcare?
Why is it better? Because Trumpcare is just basically shaving the whole bird down, cutting it off. You're leaving only the skeleton.
But, hold
and
on.
that skeleton can just.
I have a simple question. Is healthcare a human right? Is it a natural right that all people get?
No, it's not a human right.
So why is it that the government should need to fund these things if it's not a natural right? The point of government is to protect natural rights, and that's laid out in
And
the
the
preamble
point-
of the Constitution.
And the point of the government is also to help people. And if it helps people, the government
okay,
feels that it should help.
so if something helps me, I automatically get it for the government because it helps me.
Well, can you get it yourself?
People can get healthcare themselves.
I'd like to
Not
point
a lot
out
of people
that
can.
before the government getting into healthcare was a service provided by the private sector. And when that happened, there was a lot less regulation to go through, and people were able to access healthcare even on a local body because healthcare was a lot more decentralized. It was not government or federal in nature, and it was accessed from a different variety of people. When the government was outside of healthcare and the regulation was non-existent, the healthcare was able to operate as normal, and people were able to get the services they needed easily because of easy access without having to go through a lot of red tape.
But how many people didn't have health care?
Maybe, okay,
The government has to spend. Hold up, let me state this too. The government has to pay for your bills even if you don't have health care. If you can't afford health care, the government still has to pay for your bills.
but why don't they have
Listen,
healthcare? Because
If they can't afford health care,
yeah, hold on, because they don't have money. So maybe you should educate people on how to save money, save up, get a better job, go through college, stuff like that, instead of just giving them free handouts and not teaching them any lessons.
You're saying we should do this, and I agree. That is completely correct. We start doing that, the country will do a lot better. Not just for healthcare and other issues, but for wider spectrums of issues and conflicts. But we're dealing with right now what we need to deal with right now. That's what the problem is. We're trying to. You're thinking, oh, if we start doing this, then it'll help people. Yes, we should do that at the same time, but we also have to deal with the problem that is at hand. And the problem is at hand that people don't have health care.
I think culturally it doesn't help because there's so many different cultures within America, and they all emphasize different things. Like, for example, Protestantism, it's like do it yourself. There's this work ethic. While in other cultures, like for example Confucianism, they're a lot more collective, and so like while certain enclaves will accept these, there's still going to be major pushback against it, and so there's no real chance we could ever have a unified healthcare system. It's always going to be flawed in some
Yeah,
manner.
of course. Unified healthcare system is completely retarded. It's dumb.
No,
The problem is, I agree with them, that there needs to be a lot more variety. And how you do that is by allowing private corporations to have more power in that sector. But at the same time, you still need government presence there, because if not, then they'll do whatever they want. And that led to the Great Depression. Like, corporations did whatever the they want. And it wasn't good for anyone.
Adrian, the Great Depression started because the central bank started around that time.
The central bank started around that time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it did.
I know that.
Okay. All right.
But at the same time, corporations were just... Well, at the same time, people were done with money at the same time.
What specifically were they doing that led to the Great Depression?
What specifically were they doing?
Yeah, the corporations.
They were giving people stuff that they shouldn't have gotten. They bought everything with credit.
because the government.
Corporations allow them to just, hey, let me just give an example real quick. Here's a 50-cent can of cola. You don't have any money? I'll put credit on it.
I'd like to point
Then
out that Coca-Cola actually went for a nickel back then. Just saying. Back to when you were
This-
We're sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, by the way, we're sponsored by Coca-Cola, or we wish to be sponsors for Coca-Cola. Hit
We're
us up.
completely open to a sponsorship whenever you'd like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just send us money.
Yes.
Please.
We'll take it. We'll drink
Coca-Cola Company, comment below where you wanna us to-
Please send us an email,
Yes.
brainstormedofficial@gmail.com. We check our email daily. Thank you. Great.
Anyways, back to the conversation.
I'd like to point out that in my perspective, there's hardly any difference between Obamacare and the American Health Care Act.
That's
I
just
think
non-biased. They're essentially the same thing.
I think
Yeah.
that they're essentially the same
It's
thing, and I
down
think
a
that
lot,
the Republicans talked a big game about getting rid of Obamacare, but what they did was they reskinned it under a different brand
Yeah.
and published it as it was their own creation. And I think that's blatant hypocrisy. If you're not going to get rid of Obamacare, then you shouldn't substitute an alternative in the name of your pride. I think that they wish to put up something because that's what they promised the voters, but I think they completely failed. They didn't do what the voters wanted. They didn't get rid of Obamacare. They reskinned it. And if you're just going to push it under a Republican label to get approval, I think that that's a lie, and that's frankly it's hardly a representative of our country if we're going to allow our politicians to camouflage and push policy that doesn't benefit us.
Well, it's
Just
hard to just take away a benefit that like we've given them for the last few years. Like it'd be like taking away Social Security. You can't
Well,
just,
I
like,
don't believe that we should
take the rug
immediately
out from
repeal
under
Obamacare either. I think that the big issue was that a lot of people wanted to push for the immediate repeal completely of Obamacare.
But it's simply
and some
not
people wanted to
practical.
keep it. It's not practical to completely remove Obamacare
Because
unless
they-
you have a
They've
suitable
got to do it
alternative.
slowly. And that's
Yeah.
what they're doing.
That I agree with him on that one.
And the whole thing is, if you take it all the way at once, people get way too butthurt, and then riots start happening. Like that's not productive at all.
Yeah, I think that
It has to be a slower.
Personally, I really liked Rand Paul's approach, and he even voted with the Democrats to keep Obamacare because there was no suitable alternative in place.
That's
When the
true.
Republicans didn't have something to back up Obamacare with to easily replace it, that was a big issue. You can't just repeal something without offering an alternative, and I don't think that you can just dance in the middle of the road without offering either an alternative or keeping Obamacare.
Because then both sides hate you.
Yeah, exactly. I think that.
And that's what's happening now. The Republicans hate Trump care, and the Democrats, of course, they hate Trump care.
Yeah, and Obamacare really hasn't been repealed. It hasn't at all, even if Trump ran under that as his mantra the entirety of his campaign. I think that that was complete deceit. And I think that, honestly, if you're going to get rid of Obamacare, you need to have a good alternative that isn't the same thing. And I think that that's what should have been in place rather than just simply keeping most of it and just rebranding. That's, to me, that's a lot.
Very well said.
Going back to
I agree.
Davin's point, when he was talking about how people like having healthcare is raising the prices for insurance for people. Well, when they don't have healthcare and they go to the hospital anyways because they need the hospital, it raises the prices of everybody else's like hospital costs because they don't have healthcare and they just throw it on the other people.
Yeah, I think that's an issue because obviously we really can't let people die, and someone's going to end up having to foot the bill eventually. And that's obviously an issue, but I
Well,
think that I don't think that the approach should be giving everyone health care. I think that the approach should more so be offering more employment opportunities and encouraging financial stability rather than just simply shoving universal health care down someone's throat. I don't
It's
think
not.
that-
It's not practical that a bunch of people die, but in the grand scheme of things, that would actually help the world out.
Well, like, you guys don't, you're not on Obamacare, none of you, right? Like the program, none of you are, right? Exactly.
I think so.
This is for the people that
Well,
don't
actually-
or cannot get it.
Well, actually, yeah, actually, my family has had that in the past because we've actually had experience with that, and frankly, it was just really a lot of chaos. We weren't hit as hard as other people were, but I know that a lot of people, their premiums really did spike, like last year, the end of last year, and also the beginning. They immediately had a huge 300% premium spike during their having Obamacare, and I think that that was really wrong, especially if Obamacare's purpose was to offer more affordable health care.
That is
What's the
true,
Affordable
but-
Health Care Act? Or
What was the reason for the spike in prices last year and the beginning of this year?
Because insurers would pull out because
Because
the insurers
They were
didn't see
forced.
Obamacare as a suitable alternative to keep their
They couldn't
businesses
make a
open.
profit.
because Trump was elected president, and because
No, but the premium spiked before he was elected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Premium
no,
spiked
they
during the
knew
primaries.
it was unstable. The whole market was unstable while Trump and Hillary were running.
Yeah, I think that's because a lot of Americans finally realized what was going on, and healthcare actually came to the big scheme because of a presidential election. I think that honestly, what Obamacare was, it became. I don't really think people knew what Obamacare was, and there was a lot of controversy. And just because it had that Obama name, I feel like a lot of people on the right immediately attached a bad stigma to
That's
it
true.
without knowing what it was.
Well,
And I think it's fair to criticize Obamacare, but you can't criticize it simply because of a nominal. I think that you actually have to understand what it implied. And if you're going to support Trump care simply because of the change of name, I think that you're uneducated, and that's an issue. That's a really big issue because
Well-
you don't understand what healthcare is.
well, there are so many uneducated
Agreed.
people in this country. Like that's just a fact.
Okay, so over this whole conversation, we've just come back to people need to be educated.
Yeah, I think that
Like, it's
employment's
just-
a huge part of that, and education obviously that
Big
there's,
training ground
there's,
here.
there's a positive correlation with employment and education. And I think that it comes back to education really, and knowing what the issues
I mean,
are.
it's kind of a correlation, but it's really a causation almost.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's when you receive an education, you tend to get an employment because you're secure. I think that that's no one can deny that. That's a fact.
That is true. All right.
So moving on, I think we should probably discuss the Middle East because that's obviously been a huge issue ever since ISIS came around in 2014. And
It's been a big issue since 1980.
it's been
Yeah.
a big issue since World War II.
Go on.
No.
Man.
Where is it?
I don't know. Cut.
You would have cut that a long time ago. Cut that like right before that.
Yeah, cut
that's
that.
fine.
Okay,
I can
now.
edit. Like,
All right,
It's
Okay, so
I have tons of RAM. When I was
3, 2. Howdy, guys. Welcome back to Brainstorm. I'm Adrian.
I'm Devin.
I'm Ethan.
And I'm Gabriel. We're discussing the Middle East.
Yes.
All right.
I think that it's probably important to know where it started, and I think that really the issue of the Middle East became a lot more mainstream and known about when ISIS first came about. Well, you can trace it back to 9/11 with Al Qaeda, but I think a renewed interest came after Osama bin Laden's death and when ISIS came around.
I trace it way back to the 80s because there's.
Well, obviously it's got its roots in a lot of problems.
think
but
it
I-
starts
But
with
like, I feel like it's been the Middle East has
partition.
been a main like point for the world for actually since forever.
Yeah,
actually,
it's been
when I think
forever
about it.
because you can look back at the '60s in Palestine and Israel. That was still a conflict back then. '60s, '40s. Like it's always been happening throughout history.
Yeah.
And I think it's just important to know why that is, and I think that because of all of the different cultures, there's a lot of tension and a lot of friction, and that the slightest offense can easily trigger something a lot more widespread. And that's why I think the Middle East currently serves as a battleground for a lot of like proxy conflicts between a lot of the world powers today. We're in America. America currently supports, well, supposedly supports Israel. They do so financially extremely. Israel constitutes about 70% of our foreign aid. And Russia, for example, they support the Assad regime. And I think that a lot of that all interacts in a way that creates a lot of tension and it's a lot of sparks flying. And
Yeah.
personally, I think that in the future, something big is going to happen because of conflict in the Middle
I
East.
agree.
Definitely.
Definitely. That is very true.
It's not something that could happen. It's
It's
something
going
will,
to
something
happen.
will happen soon. Because you have Russia trying to stick their finger in everything. Then you have the United States just being an idiot in the Middle East all throughout history.
Yeah, personally, I really think that getting involved in the Middle East possibly had a noble purpose at the beginning, but I don't think that currently it benefits
No,
the United
definitely
States
not.
at all. We currently give a ton of aid to a lot of people, and I know that's in the
And people
spirit of-
die over there
Yeah,
constantly.
I know that it's in the spirit of humanitarian aid, but it's not benefiting Americans. And I think that it's really important to go back to what helps America. And it's important for us to honor our alliances, but if it's not going to help America when we already have a ton of problems of our own, especially domestically, I don't think we should be getting involved in countries that would use that as reason to attack us. I think that because we intervened, we get events like 9/11. And I think that because of Western intervention in the Middle East, that's why we have all of this, these bombings and this increase in ISIS attacks. I think that's a big issue.
Well, not only ISIS attacks, but ISIS itself was because of Western intervention.
Yes, I completely believe that they were able to obtain these weapons and, well, the amount of influence they have really because of Western civilization and what we've done in relation to the Middle East. I think that that's a big issue.
There's a lot of things there, Gabe. Okay, so.
It's like in the
I'm just
1980s
thinking. Oh, yeah, go.
when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, it really started when we decided to arm rebels, the Mujahideen. And what do you know? Osama bin Laden was one of our guys of the time. Like, he was considered a rebel hero here. And then, then when we left and when the Soviets left, they decided they want more, and that's what led to the Saudis funding 9/11, and then that's what led to us going back and arming those rebel groups, which is what led to ISIS
Yeah.
and all.
And we keep going back to clean up our own mess.
Hold on. You missed a major factor. The reason the Middle East hates the U.S. so much is not because we intervened, it's because we leave a mess. We destroyed the Middle East. They
It's
used
because
to
we do intervene.
No,
Yeah, the mess comes because we intervened. I do.
we didn't help after. Like, after all that mess with Russia, Afghanistan and that area was destroyed. It was absolutely a mess.
Well, obviously, because of all these foreign
and-
powers that are
yes,
intervening
and
in
it's-
national politics,
because-
I don't think that that was a good thing.
But it wasn't directly the U.S.'s fault. It was, if it wasn't for the Russians invading the Afghanistan, because if we don't stop Russia in their tracks, when they're trying to invade a country, they're just going to invade more countries because we didn't stop them.
But do you think that the benefits that we
Adrian,
get from
But,
stopping
but
them?
I think it's worse if we let Russia go roam free
Hold on, but
and do
you're-
whatever they want. That's what's happening with Ukraine.
But there's an issue because you're missing a whole continent. It's not United States, Russia. It's United States. Europe is right here. There's countless countries in Europe
Yeah,
that
we're
can
across the
easily do
ocean.
something.
Yeah.
You know, do you understand the power Russia has? Russia is more powerful.
Also, you're forgetting that
Then-
this was Russia at its peak, the USSR, and that this is when they were finally declining when they invaded Afghanistan. It was an act of desperation.
Yeah, that was when they were declining. But they're still a very dangerous country. They have more nukes in Russia than in the U.S. They have over, I believe.
The thing is, like, our nukes are more powerful.
Yeah.
though.
That is true. Quality over quantity. But
And plus, do they even have nukes like actually readily available that can nuke us?
probably every
Yeah.
country has that.
Yeah, but do they have some station close enough that we know of? I mean, we obviously have nukes pointed at Russia and Europe,
And there's nukes everywhere, dude.
but do they have nukes directly pointed at us in some country that they're harboring?
Most likely.
I think in Turkey.
I don't think that
No.
type of intelligence is currently available
Like,
to us.
like
to know for
it's a
certain
most.
status
I'm saying
of
most
weapons.
likely because I'm not. No one knows for sure.
Right.
That's what we're trying to find out, and that's what they're trying to hide. But if they see us as a major threat, I'm pretty sure they're gonna be having nukes ready for
Well,
us.
you would think, but what country would they be in?
What country? Argentina.
Well, going back to the Middle East, I really think that in the Middle East currently there's a shared job that I think both the United States and Russia want to see, and that's defeating ISIS. And I think that Russia, and specifically Putin, does want to get rid of ISIS.
I agree.
And I think that we also do want to get rid of ISIS. But we're going about it in a very weird way, in my opinion, because Putin is supporting the Assad regime, which has obviously been extremely controversial.
Dave, I'm gonna tell you exactly what we need. We need more 400-pound hackers that can hack the nukes.
Honestly,
It's that
yeah.
simple.
Oh man.
Okay, if you're watching, get 400 pounds and learn to hack. That will solve all the world problems.
He's got a point though. He does have a point. Anonymous, we're talking to you.
That's a meme. Anonymous doesn't exist anymore.